Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 372. We've talked the last few days about the compensation fund and how over 100 survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse have applied for compensation through that fund. Well, tonight, we have a report from ABC News talking about how one of these survivors, who we have talked about at length here on the podcast, is trying to drop her civil suit against Ghislaine Maxwell. That way she can be paid out through the compensation fund. But Ghislaine Maxwell, living in some bizarro world, thinks that it's up to her if this suit is dropped or not. So once again, we see Ghislaine Maxwell and her legal team trying to slow down the process, trying to make it hard on these survivors, and trying to make it difficult for them to receive compensation or to even begin to start their lives over. Ghislaine Maxwell, her legal team, and all of the people around them have been using the same old tricks for way too long. And now, with this new revelation, I don't even understand how Ghislaine Maxwell and her legal team think they're going to pull this one off. So, I'm suing you, but I decide that I'm going to end those civil proceedings and I'm not going to sue you. But you're going to go to court and you're going to tell the judge, no, I think that person should sue me some more. I think there should be a much larger lawsuit, in fact, and I think they should sue the pants off of me. It just doesn't make any sense. And it just goes to show you that her and her legal team are only interested in slowing things down. They know that they're not innocent. They know that Ghislaine Maxwell is not the kind of client that has, let us say, a sterling record. We know the rumors about Ghislaine Maxwell. We know what the eyewitness accounts say about Ghislaine Maxwell. And we also know what the authorities believe about Ghislaine Maxwell. And you notice her lawyers haven't come out with any sort of evidence pointing that the allegations made against her are not true, right? They've talked about technicalities. They've talked about loopholes and that sort of thing. But it's not, balls to the wall, my client is innocent and we're going to prove it in a court of law. No, it hasn't been any of that. And I don't think we're going to see that, considering it's kind of hard to do when the evidence just doesn't line up with that sort of narrative. And the fact that she is attempting to hold up the process once again from one of these girls, one of these survivors, getting a payout is just ludicrous to me. Let's jump into this article from ABC News and see just what the hell is going on here. Headline: Alleged trafficking survivor wants to drop her lawsuit. Ghislaine Maxwell objects. This article was authored by James Hill. And it just doesn't make sense to me, right? Why in the hell would you object if somebody was suing you? I would think that would be a brief moment of happiness, a fleeting moment of happiness in a world filled with misery for Ghislaine Maxwell at this point. You would think that one less legal headache would be a good thing. But no, not if you're Maxwell, not if you're her legal team. What do you mean you're not suing me anymore? How dare you? I'm being mistreated. You should sue me. Everybody should sue me. What are they even talking about? And why would they want somebody to continue to sue them? One of the 3 alleged survivors in the criminal indictment of Ghislaine Maxwell is attempting to dismiss her civil lawsuit against Maxwell and the estate of Jeffrey Epstein, but attorneys for Maxwell are objecting, insisting they first be provided with a copy of a confidential settlement agreement the alleged survivor, Annie Farmer, reached with the survivors' claims program established by the estate according to court records. So they want Annie to turn over a copy of her settlement agreement with Jeffrey Epstein's estate. And their basis for that is what? They're the ones being sued. They're not doing the suing. I don't think they have any legal recourse to stop somebody from suing them. So I don't even understand what their motives here or what their goals are. Obviously, I could be missing it, right? I'm not some high-profile lawyer from New York City. But from, where I'm at and from what I know of this case so far and from what we have seen so far, I just don't understand what they think they're going to accomplish going this route. The idea is to have a less amount of court cases piled up against you, I would think, right? I know if it was me, I'd be sitting in my jail cell waiting on my bologna sandwich, and I'd be saying to myself, well, at least I'm not getting sued on top of all of this shit. And that was one of the parameters of the compensation fund, remember. It's not like Jennifer Arreos or Annie just woke up one day and they were like, you know what, we're going to let this shit slide. We're not going to sue Ghislaine Maxwell anymore. We're just going to keep it moving. Of course, that's not what occurred. What's occurring here is that it's part of the stipulations in the compensation fund. So if they get a payout from the compensation fund, they can't sue any of these scumbags that worked for Jeffrey Epstein. Now, that doesn't mean these people are off the hook criminally. It just means that as far as civil suits, that's not going to be able to occur if they take money from this fund. So if it was me, I would take the money from the fund. I would waive my right to sue the rest of these people. And instead of suing the rest of these people, I would demand that they get arrested and that I am able to testify against them. Because really, that is the real nail in the coffin, right? Taking their money is fine and well, but hammering them in a criminal case, that's the real, icing on top of the cake. And that's certainly what I'm sure Annie's going to do here. So she didn't give up her right to do that. She is just trying to not sue Ghislaine Maxwell anymore so that she can finish going through the process of being made whole by the compensation fund that she is entitled to. And yet Ghislaine Maxwell and her shitbag attorneys are throwing a wrench in the situation again and slowing shit down. Miss Maxwell respectfully requests that this court order Farmer to provide to Miss Maxwell an unredacted copy of the signed and executed release from the claims program, Maxwell's lawyer, Laura Menninger, wrote in a letter to the court Tuesday. I would never, ever acquiesce to that, by the way. It's not Ghislaine Maxwell's business what sort of settlement any of these gals get. She wants all this documentation to be unsealed, and she wants documentation to all of this. She wants access to all of this documentation. Meanwhile, she's fighting tooth and nail for everything to remain sealed in her own case. Yeah, not going to happen, Ghislaine. There is zero reason that she should need to see a copy of any of the compensation agreements that are signed between the estate and these girls. It's not coming out of her pocket, right? Has nothing to do with her, right? Besides the fact that she's once again being shielded, like with the non-prosecution agreement, just this time civilly. That's what this is, right? The compensation fund. It's a non-prosecution civilly agreement. Now, they're obviously getting paid out from the compensation fund, but they can't go after the co-conspirators civilly and sue them for financial redress. And yet, Ghislaine Maxwell has the audacity to try and slow this down even. You would think that she'd have at least a little bit of humility. I know, that's a lot to ask, from a bipedal sociopathic serpent. But you would think at this point she's had a few months to reflect, and she'd pick her battles more wisely. But here she is once again trying to take on every single battle on every single front. And in the meantime, she's losing every last one of them. And I have no doubt that it'll be the same here. I highly doubt that a judge is going to require Annie or any of these other survivors to provide any sort of documentation to Ghislaine Maxwell or her legal team. Farmer, 41, has publicly identified herself as victim number 2 in the criminal case and is almost certain to be called as a witness should Maxwell's case proceed to trial next summer. Boy, I can't wait to see that day. That'll be a grand day, boys and girls. And as long as this pandemic has blown through and I could be sitting in that courtroom, I will be sitting in that courtroom. Because I really would like to see the look on Ghislaine Maxwell's face when these survivors get up there one after the other, point their fingers at her, and let the world know what really happened. Because that's the day when the whole entire house of cards falls down. Maxwell is charged with facilitating and, in some cases, participating in Epstein's alleged sexual crimes against 3 minor girls, including Farmer in the mid-1990s. And now remember, these are just the charges that we have as of now. We know that they were on a very long criminal escapade when it comes to sex trafficking, right? And remember, they had several things going on. They had their sex trafficking ring where they were pimping girls out, and and that's not even the right word, pimping girls out. They were trafficking these girls. And at the same time, Jeffrey Epstein had his own sick little thing going on with the high school girls and fulfilling his own proclivities. So they had many different balls in the air as they were juggling here. And there is no way that when this is all said and done, that these are the only charges that we end up seeing. I just don't see how that's even possible. I mean, I guess I could be wrong, right? Which certainly wouldn't be the first time. But from what we know and everything that we have seen, it is just impossible for me to think that these will be the only charges that Ghislaine Maxwell ends up facing. Farmer filed the lawsuit in November of 2019, 8 months before Maxwell's arrest, alleging she was sexually trafficked at age 16 as part of Epstein and Maxwell's organized ring of procuring young women and girls for sex. Just let that sink in for a minute, okay? What sort of disgusting, filthy, gross animal do you have to be to engage in this sort of behavior? Trafficking little girls all over the place, bringing little girls across state lines, breaking the Mann Act to abuse and sexually assault, all at the same time grooming them and normalizing the behavior. And this guy gets away with 13 months, and Ghislaine Maxwell is shielded by a ridiculous non-prosecution agreement for all of these years. And then once she is caught, once she is put in jail, once she is sitting there for 5-6 months, she is still trying to be a monkey in the wrench. And she is still trying to slow things down and control the narrative. One thing she needs to understand, and understand fully, is that she is no longer in control of the narrative. That she is no longer in control of anything, in fact. During a 1996 visit to Epstein's ranch in New Mexico, Farmer claims Maxwell pressured her into receiving a massage and touched intimate parts of her body against her will, according to Farmer's complaint. So she brings her to New Mexico, as we all know, and she tries to normalize this behavior with the massage MO, the same blueprint she used with all these other girls. And she went on to do the other stuff that she did with some of these girls as well. Touch them in places they don't want to be touched, assault them, and just generally abuse them. And we've seen several other girls come out and say the same thing. And Annie not only has come out and said this stuff, right? But she was there when Ghislaine Maxwell was first arrested, and it was partially because of her account that the court kept Ghislaine Maxwell in jail. So it is just insane to think that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein got away with this stuff for so damn long. And now, when all of this stuff is coming to a head and all of this information is starting to finally come out, you would have us believe that it was only 3 girls in the mid-90s that they abused. I don't think anyone believes that. I think everybody is just waiting at this point for this indictment to be superseded and for more charges to be dropped on Ghislaine Maxwell's head like a piano in the old cartoons. At a detention hearing for Maxwell in July, Farmer spoke to the court via video link to implore the judge in the criminal case to deny Maxwell's request to be released on bail. And if you remember, the girls speaking and the written statement to the court is all powerful stuff, right? These are the people that Jeffrey Epstein abused. And when their words are spoken in a setting like that and they take their power back from their abusers, it's a pretty awesome thing to see. And I hope coming up for Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, we get to see a whole lot more of that. She is a sexual predator who groomed and abused me and countless other children and young women, Farmer said. She has never shown any remorse for her heinous crimes, for the devastating, lasting effects her actions caused. And she never will. She, like I always say, she's a bipedal serpent. She's a sociopath. She's a sick individual. And she truly believes she didn't do anything wrong. This sort of behavior is so normalized to them that people like her don't think that they do anything wrong when they're caught doing stuff like this. They think that their money and their power makes it all okay, that they can do whatever they want, whenever they want to do it. And what Ghislaine Maxwell is finding out is that assumption is absolutely incorrect. Farmer's civil lawsuit was placed on hold in June while she presented her claims to the Epstein's Victims Compensation Fund, the voluntary restitution program that began operating earlier this year. In October, Farmer accepted an offer from the fund, which requires her to drop all pending litigation against the estate and any former employees of Epstein. But when Farmer attempted to do just that, Maxwell's legal team resisted. Of course they did, right? And they know that Annie is one of the accusers in this lawsuit, in this criminal case against them, and they're going to do everything in their power to make it hard on her. They're going to do everything in their power to drag their feet. They're going to do everything in their power to make it uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, none of it's going to matter, in my opinion. They're not going to get their way. They're not going to get to see the settlement, I would hope anyway, at least not the whole thing. Redact it the same way they like to redact things. Just redact the whole bunch of it and leave like 3 words and give that to them. That's what I would do. In the event Farmer attempts to sue her again in any forum at some unknown time in the future, Miss Maxwell needs a signed and executed release so that she has a legally enforceable document to seek dismissal of any such claim, Menninger wrote, arguing that assurances from Farmer's lawyers in correspondence are insufficient. What? I'm pretty sure the court is aware of what's going on here, and if documentation needs to be submitted to a judge, I'm sure that could occur, but the documentation submitted to Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers so that they can sign off on some sort of release at some point later on in the future, it doesn't pass the smell test to me, okay? And I don't understand why they would even think that a request like that would be granted. It is not her business, or anyone else's, frankly, what sort of compensation Annie or any of these other girls receive. Their privacy should be respected, and they should be able to move on with their lives after this whole entire sordid episode is over. Ghislaine Maxwell goes to prison. Her cohorts go to prison. Then these gals should be able to move on with their lives. They have earned that much. And anybody who's trying to pry into how much money they're getting is an absolute jerk-off. Sigrid McCauley, an attorney for Farmer, described Maxwell's demands as perplexing and indefensible, and a clear attempt to stall Miss Farmer's ability to receive the compensation that she has been offered through the Victims' Compensation Program. That's exactly it. Sigrid McCauley hits the nail on the head once again, because that's what they're doing. They want it to be uncomfortable, right? I'm uncomfortable, so you should be uncomfortable too. I have to be miserable here in this jail, so you should be miserable out there as well. That's their goal. That's what she wants. And it's just ridiculous to think that somebody who is being sued is going to raise objection when the other party drops that lawsuit. It is asinine at best. McCauley, a partner at Boies Schiller Flexner, told U.S. Magistrate Judge Deborah Freeman in a letter this week that Farmer had offered to provide Maxwell a copy of the settlement agreement with only the amount of the monetary offer blacked out. But she said Maxwell's lawyers rejected that attempt to reach a compromise. Well, then they should go get stuffed. All right? They should just go get stuffed. The suit should be dropped, and Maxwell and her team of bozo-ass lawyers should be embarrassed of themselves. You would think they have more important things to focus on, right? Than trying to keep a suit going against themselves. But here we are. You know that they have other motivations, though, and with Annie being one of the plaintiffs in the criminal case, you know that they're going to try and milk whatever sort of information out of her and her representation before the fact to try and better to prepare themselves for the upcoming trial and for the choppy waters that undoubtedly lay ahead. Dan Abrams, chief legal analyst for ABC News, said that Maxwell's unusual effort to obtain information about Farmer's confidential monetary settlement with the estate as a condition of dismissing the case should be viewed in the context of Maxwell's pending criminal trial and a potential cross-examination of Farmer. That's exactly what I thought it would be, right? And it's all about getting as much information that they possibly can. They know that it's inevitable that Annie's going to get this money. They know it's inevitable that the court isn't going to say, oh, well, no, Annie, you have to continue to sue Ghislaine Maxwell. You can't drop your lawsuit. The court's not going to say that. So they're trying to roll the dice, right? They're trying to see what they can see, and they're trying to do whatever they can to garner information that they think will be helpful moving forward. It's clear that Maxwell's lawyers want as much information as possible on Farmer and on any of the potential witnesses who could testify in her criminal case, Abrams said. If the amount of the settlement was known, you can count on the fact that if Farmer was called to testify, they would want to cite the amount that she settled for to suggest she was in it for the money. And that's exactly what they want to do. They want to defame her and make her seem like it's just for the money and all of that other good shit that these disgusting bipedal serpents love to engage in. And like I said, that shit worked the first time around. It is not going to work this time around. I don't think the judges are going to be, okey-doked by it. I certainly don't think a jury is going to buy it. And as far as the public goes, well, we know where the public sentiment is on this case. And people are outraged. People are pissed off. And people aren't going to settle for any sort of nonsense. Still, Abrams sees Maxwell as lacking leverage and thinks it's unlikely that a judge would grant Maxwell's request for those details. Farmer is saying, forget it, I'm not suing you anymore. I don't see how Maxwell has any basis for demanding information before she agrees to let Farmer not sue her anymore, he said. And that's what I was saying earlier, right? What sort of legal basis do you even have to try and make it out like she has to sue you? She doesn't have to sue you. So what is Ghislaine Maxwell, what is she even trying to accomplish here besides throwing another late Hail Mary? Because that's what everything she's been doing has seemed like, a Hail Mary. She certainly hasn't had any protracted drives here, folks. That's for damn sure. Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to the criminal charges and denied the allegations in Farmer's lawsuit. To be clear, Miss Maxwell denies that she had any involvement in any of the activity alleged in Farmer's complaint, Menninger wrote in a court filing in May. So, of course, Ghislaine Maxwell is denying any of this happened. She's saying, you kidding me? I had nothing to do with this. You got the wrong Ghislaine Maxwell. There's another one that lives down the block. She spells her name differently, but you must be talking about her. That's what Ghislaine Maxwell's defense is. Wasn't me. Well, I wasn't there. Oh, you have evidence? Well, it wasn't me. DNA evidence? Nope, not me. Meanwhile, there's a mountain as high as Mount Everest of evidence pointing to Ghislaine Maxwell not only being an intricate part of Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise, but also, in some cases, taking part in the abuse itself. Menninger of Haddon, Morgan, and Foreman in Denver did not respond to a request for comment. And I brought this up a few days ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago. I don't even know anymore. It's been so many shows at this point. That Menninger being in Colorado is pretty interesting, considering the chalet that Jeffrey Epstein had in Vail in Colorado. It makes you wonder if Ghislaine was staying there while she was on the lam and how she came into being a client of Laura Menninger. I think that's a pretty interesting side story. Now, doesn't really have any, effect on the overall case. Just one of those interesting subplots that we run into here in this story all the time. Macaulay, through a spokesperson for her firm, declined to comment. Lawyers for the Epstein estate have consented to Farmer's request to dismiss the civil case. So the executors have acquiesced and they're like, all right, let's drop this shit, let's get her paid out, and let's move on. But Ghislaine Maxwell, for whatever ridiculous reason, has decided that she is going to be obstinate, that she is going to not let Annie not sue her. It's just obscene. I can't even imagine that these people think that this is a quality legal strategy. And it makes me think that good old Ghislaine Maxwell, G-Max, is wasting her money here with these lawyers, because I highly doubt that they're going to demand that Annie turn over a copy of the compensation that she got paid out by the compensation fund as a basis for her to cancel a lawsuit that she is the one who has brought in the first place. Again, maybe I'm not a sharp as a tack legal mind like Laura Menninger or some of these other clowns, but from a common sense perspective, this shit looks absolutely ridiculous. Ghislaine Maxwell continues to look ridiculous. And the whole entire thought process used by her legal team to try and slow things down, make things go at a slower rate, is not going to work out. Trial time is quickly approaching. It's already December, folks. Before you know it, it will be July. Then all of the wrangling, the loopholes, the backroom dealing, that's all going to be done. And it's going to be the time to get to the bottom of this whole entire sordid affair, get to the truth, and then dispense some justice. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, everybody, I'll be back tomorrow morning, and we will pick up where we left off.